Hello dear students, welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy, the Hindu News Analysis. Today's date is 13th June 2024 and here I've compiled all important news articles from different newspapers. I'm presenting those important news articles in today's discussion. So before discussing all those important articles, let's try to discuss yesterday's practice question. So yesterday I have given one practice question for prelims, and as I have already told you that this practice question was already discussed in one of our lecture. So the question was, consider the following and how many of the above countries have recently joined the BRICS grouping. So this was the question, and we all knew that when we talk about the BRICS grouping, so it is an acronym of 5 different countries. So they are Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. So a BRICS consists of 5 different countries. So however, recently the BRICS leaders have decided to expand the BRICS grouping. So include more numbers. They have decided to include more number of members into the BRICS grouping so that it would be more dynamic rather than a static, outdated grouping. So however, a multipolar world order, emergence of different centers of power at different regions, is also the reason for expanding BRICS grouping. Right, so this indicates a multipolar world order. Now I have given few options here. So countries like Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. So these are the countries, and how many of these countries recently part of BRICS? So the correct answer for this question is option C, only 5. Now earlier Argentina was also decided to be part of the BRICS grouping, but in recent elections, the new president of Argentina decided not to become part of the BRICS grouping. So therefore, BRICS recently in the BRICS grouping, Argentina not become part of. But if we exclude Argentina, all other remaining 5 members recently became part of the BRICS grouping. Now BRICS grouping became total 10 members. Right, so these are the 5 new different members that were recently part of this BRICS grouping. Now, as I've already told you that India recently welcomed the inclusion of Egypt, Iran, UAE, Saudi Arabia and Ethiopia joining this BRICS grouping. And in fact, in recent meeting that was conducted in Russia, the representatives of 5 new countries were attended in a key meeting that was hosted by Russia. So in fact, the meeting was the first ministerial meeting following the BRICS expansion. A decision was taken to expand the BRICS grouping in the year 2023. So when Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia and UAE joined these 5 different already existing countries. Now all these 5 countries became the full-fledged members of this BRICS grouping. Now we need to exclude Argentina because Argentina decided not to become part of the BRICS grouping. Except Argentina, all these 5 members and existing 5 members, total BRICS grouping has 10 member countries. And today also I have a very important prelims practice question. The question is, India launched initiative on critical and emerging technologies with which of the following countries? So the options are A, United States, B, Australia, C, Japan and D, European Union. Now understand, if you carefully regularly follow our discussions, I have also discussed about the initiative for critical and emerging technologies with one particular country. So just try to answer this question in the comment section and I'll be providing you the correct answer in tomorrow's class. Right. So without any further delay, let's start our discussion with the first very important topic is the productive linked incentive scheme or production linked incentive scheme. Now what exactly is this production linked incentive scheme that was recently launched by the union government to give boost to manufacturing? To boost manufacturing, this production linked incentive scheme was launched by the union government. Right, so the production linked incentive scheme was extended to 14 different sectors where the union government would provide certain concessions for these 14 sectors on their incremental sales. Now also understand the production linked incentive scheme would be applicable for both domestic as well as the foreign companies, right? So what was the context of this production linked incentive scheme that is being recently discussed? So production recently launched. So the production linked incentive scheme is expected to attract an investment of 3 to 4 lakh crore in the next 4 years, right? Because the production linked incentive scheme is providing certain incentives for the both foreign and domestic companies on their incremental sales, on their production, so thereby enhancing the productivity of the existing companies, both domestic and foreign companies. So when the productive capacity of our existing companies increases, then the export potential and the competitive nature of the Indian economy will also significantly increases. Now, because of the production linked incentive scheme, since the government has been extending certain incentives under the production linked incentive scheme, so it is highly likely that more investments will come into India, and that will result in job creation. And the other thing that we have to understand with respect to the production linked incentive scheme, so most of the sectors which were part of this production linked incentive scheme are both capital intensive and at the same time the labor intensive industries. So because of the labor intensive nature of these sectors which were extended the production linked incentive scheme, so there is a high possibility that they will create a large scale employment in our country. So because of the production linked incentive scheme, it is expected that we will get a 3 to 4 lakh crore of the investment in the next 4 years, and this huge investment will also generate around 2 lakh jobs. So of course it is it is a possibility that if we attract investments on a large scale, those investments will also create employment opportunities for people. So I would like to link it with the demographic dividend. So we have a huge demographic dividend, huge working age population. So because of the huge working age population, unemployment is also one challenge that we have been facing. Now, how can we, overcome this unemployment challenge? So we can overcome this unemployment challenge through attracting more investments, encouraging the MSMEs, and also promoting the entrepreneurship among the aspiring individuals. So all these factors will help us overcome the problem or the challenge of unemployment. So therefore, this production linked incentive scheme will also help us create or generate a gainful employment opportunities for around 2 lakh people. And in fact, the production linked incentive scheme has been extended for a very important sectors like semiconductor and pharmaceutical intermediaries. For example, if you look at the active pharmaceutical ingredients, India is not self-sufficient in the manufacturing of active pharmaceutical ingredients. So we have been importing these APIs from China. We are not self-sufficient. And on the other hand, when we talk about the semiconductors, India is not self-sufficient in the semiconductor production. So we have been undertaking certain efforts to become self-sufficient in both APIs and semiconductors. So therefore, in this context, this production linked incentive scheme extended to the both semiconductor manufacturing and APIs is a welcome move from the government side. Right. So you can go through a few more details about the production linked incentive scheme through this image. Right. So now, what is the role of this production linked incentive scheme in the Indian economy? So what will be the role that the production linked incentive scheme will actually play here? So in fact, this PLI has become a crucial part that we have. India has a vision of making India a $5 trillion economy by 2024. Okay, so in order to become India a $5 trillion economy 2024-25, the production linked incentive scheme will actually play a very important role. Right? So in fact, the PLI, the production linked incentive scheme, is also one of the very important pillar in making India an Atmanirbhar Bharat, or making India Atmanirbhar or self-reliant India. Okay, so we will not dependent on raw materials on other countries. Okay, so raw materials from other countries we will not depend, rather we become self-sufficient, and this production linked incentive scheme will play a very important role in making India self-reliant and self-sufficient, and that is the vision of this production linked incentive scheme. And with this production linked incentive scheme, we will also become the $5 trillion economy as soon as possible. And as I have already told you that the production linked incentive scheme was extended to 14 different sectors, and these sectors are very often known as the strategic sectors, and at the same time these sectors which are having a high economic importance for India's overall economic growth. Now, why? Because these sectors on the one hand significantly increase the potential of Indian economy, and at the same time they would also create jobs. Okay, so gainful employment opportunities can be created by these 14 strategic and economically important sectors. The 14 sectors which were part of the production linked incentive scheme are given here, starting from the mobile manufacturing and specified electronic components. So that is the first sector, and followed by that the critical key starting materials, drug intermediaries, active pharmaceutical ingredients. So this will be the second sector. And third sector, manufacturing of medical devices. And fourth sector, automobiles, auto components. Fifth sector, pharmaceutical drugs. Sixth, specialty steel. And after that, telecom and networking products, electronic technology products, white goods, food products, textile products. Right, so these are the 14 sectors to which the production linked incentive scheme was extended, and these 14 sectors are covered under the production linked incentive scheme. Now, what is the overall objective of launching such an important scheme? So as I have already told you that the first important objective of production linked incentive scheme is making India self-sufficient, or to achieve the goal of Atmanirbhar Bharat. Second is that attract investments on a huge scale into these key and strategic sectors. And in fact, when we talk about these sectors which were included in the production linked incentive scheme, they are very important for the economic growth and gainful employment opportunities creation, and at the same time these sectors also bring in cutting edge technology into our country. Now when we attract the foreign investments under the production linked incentive scheme, so they will also come up with this cutting edge technology, and this cutting edge technology will help us significantly improve the production and productivity of our economy. And apart from that, it will also ensure efficiency and bring economies of size and scale of the manufacturing sector. Right, so it will make India one of the most competitive player at the global level in terms of India's exports to other countries. Okay, so it will make Indian companies and manufacturers globally competitive. And these schemes actually have the potential of significantly boosting the production, employment opportunities, and even the economic growth over the next 5 years or so. So apart from that, the production linked incentive scheme also has certain significant features or significant aspects for the economy. So first and foremost, when the production linked incentive scheme is being launched, so with the vision of improving manufacturing capacity in our country, and it also offers various other benefits as well. Now when we improve the manufacturing capacity in our country, when we have made a significant improvements in manufacturing, now you tell me what are the benefits we have. So our exports would become more competitive, and it will create gainful employment opportunities in our country. So increases production or productivity, so that will have impact on the demand in the economy, right? So the demand, and this would also fuel the economic growth of our country, and manufacturing would also gives entrepreneurship. So this will also promote the entrepreneurship, and this will also reduces the NPA problems across different banks. Okay, so we can say that there is a multiplier effect on the economy because of the improvements in the capacity of manufacturing, right? So in fact, the production linked incentive scheme will play a very important role in making or enhancing the economic growth of our country, because the production linked incentive scheme has been providing a certain incentives for the manufacturers. So when we have been extending incentives for the manufacturers on their incremental sales, on the production, so this will encourage both domestic as well as the foreign investments into these critical sectors, into these 14 sectors. Now understand one thing, that now India is a country, at this point of time we have a huge workforce, and compared to China and Southeast Asian countries, India's workforce is also cheaper, and at the same time the India, in fact India is one of the a big market for all these companies. So therefore, government extending such incentives for both domestic and foreign companies would certainly attract large scale investments into these 14 sectors. So both domestic investment as well as the foreign investment also into these critical sectors. So when these funds are being injected into these 14 different sectors, so that would certainly foster the economic growth and also the industrial development in the country. Now if you look at the composition of India's economy, so we can say that India's growth is a jobless growth, and if you look at the overall economy, the service sector presence is much higher compared to the manufacturing industry and agriculture sector. So the phases of economic development in advanced countries is that they first transform from agriculture to industry, from industry to service sector, but we have skipped the industry and manufacturing sector. Rather, we have made a direct transition from the agriculture to the service sector. But if you look at the service sector is less labor incentive. So it is not a labor incentive sector, rather it is a capital incentive sector. But when you look at the industries and manufacturing, so it is a labor incentive sector. So introducing the production linked incentive scheme will certainly result in the industrial development and further giving a boost to existing manufacturing capacities, and it will also create gainful employment opportunities for the people in our country. And apart from that, as I've already told you that these 14 are critical sectors and they're very important for the overall economic growth. So therefore, the 14 critical sectors, especially the production linked incentive scheme promoting these 14 sectors, so will aim at reducing India's overall dependence on the imported goods, right? So when the production and the productivity of our domestic manufacturing companies increases substantially, that will reduce India's dependence on imported goods. So it will also results in a more balanced trade deficit, and at the same time stronger Indian rupee also over a period of time. So after that, it will also significantly enhance India's export competitiveness. Now in fact, if you look at the global export data, China and Southeast Asian countries are in fact leaders in terms of export competitiveness. So India is nowhere near these countries in terms of export competitiveness. So there are certain reasons for that, because in India logistic costs are very high. So therefore, because of the logistic cost, the production costs are also very high, and overall the prices of goods between India and China there's a lot of difference. So because of affordability of Chinese goods, most of these countries prefer Chinese goods, and we need to focus on the export competitiveness of Indian goods. Now that is how India can significantly enhance its exports to the other countries. Okay, so the other major objective of the production linked incentive scheme is to boost export competitiveness in our country. So when we incentivize production for export oriented industries, so there are certain export oriented industries, and when we have incentivized production for export oriented industries, so they aims to elevate India's position in global trade, and they will also reduce reliance on imports. So that is very important here, right? So on the one hand, we have been increasing our exports, and at the same time we are reducing our dependence on imports, because one key component of the production linked incentive scheme is to achieve Atmanirbharata, achieve self-reliance, and that can be achieved through this production linked incentive scheme in these 14 critical sectors. And after that, we need to talk about the job creation element also, because increased local manufacturing under this production linked incentive scheme is actually anticipated to generate a significant employment opportunities, or it will also generate a gainful employment opportunities. So therefore, it is estimated to create around 60 lakh new jobs over a period of next 5 years. So now job creation is very, very important for India because of the existing demographic dividend. So this is the window that we have, and we need to utilize the demographic window, so that is existing for another 20 days for economic development and economic growth of our country. So there is a potential that the existing demographic dividend can actually make India the third or second largest economy in the world in a very near future. So therefore, we need to use this existing demographic dividend in a much more effective and efficient manner. Right, so this production linked incentive scheme, on the one hand, it creates a huge employment opportunities for India's youth, and it will also contribute to country's socio-economic development, and that is where this particular program is very, very important. So next we'll talk about the G7 summit. Now in fact, so G7 is an annual summit between 7 industrialized democracies. Okay, so they are known as 7 industrialized democracies. So please tell me in the comment section what are the countries which are part of G7, or what are those 7 countries which are part of the G7, right? So now I'll tell you the context. So the context is that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is expected to participate in this G7 meeting that is going to be held in Italy. Okay, now Italy is conducting G7 summit this year, and Narendra Modi was also invited for this G7 summit. And in fact, this G7 summit is very, very important at this juncture, because the G7 summit will be dealing with the global economy, and at the same time the Russia-Ukraine war and the volatility and instability in the Middle East. So therefore the G7 summit will be dealing with different aspects at the global level, and in this juncture India's active cooperation with collaboration with all these G7 countries is very, very important, and this particular G7 summit holds a lot of significance in addressing the pressing global issues. So what are those pressing global issues? Particularly the ongoing geopolitical tensions. The geopolitical tensions included Russia-Ukraine war and this Gaza Strip and Israel conflict, and the Red Sea crisis. And along with the Red Sea crisis, so the G7 countries will also discuss other important global aspects. Now, if we look into the basic details of this G7 summit, so it was founded in 1975. The G7 was established in 1975. And in fact, this G7 summit is an intergovernmental political and economic forum of all the industrialized democracies, Remember, that is intergovernmental. Now, intergovernmental is an organization where only the governments will be part of, and that is an intergovernmental organization. It is a political and economic forum of all these industrialized democracies. Now, when we talk about the composition of the G7 summit, so this G7 included most developed, advanced, industrialized countries. They are United States, United Kingdom, France, Italy, Germany, Canada, Japan, and in fact European Union is a non-enumerated member. So representatives from European Union will also take part in this G7 summit every year. And in fact, so when we talk about this G7 summit, it is not a formal institution. So it does not have any charter. So for example, when we talk about the Asian Association of Southeast Asian Nations, so this is a formal institution with a charter. But on the other hand, G7 is not a formal institution with a charter, and G7 also does not have any secretariat as of now. So in fact, when we talk about the presidency of G7 summit, so it rotates annually among the member countries, the 7 member countries. So currently the G7 summit 2024 is presided over by Italy. So that is a G7 member, and now it aims to tackle the global challenges and at the same time upholding the principles of rules-based international system. Now when I say the global challenges, there are number of global challenges. For example, the economic landscape, Russia-Ukraine war that was taking place, and this Middle East crisis, Red Sea crisis, where the sea lanes of communication were threatened by the militant activities in the Red Sea. So all these issues will be discussed in a detailed manner. So apart from that, the agenda and focus of the 2024 G7 summit, including Russia-Ukraine conflict. So that will be the primary focus of this G7 summit. And apart from that, they will also look into the ongoing Middle East crisis and its implications for the global, its implications on the global agenda also. So these are some details about the G7 summit. And next, very important topic, that is Satnami sect. So we will understand what exactly is the Satnami sect and why the Satnami sect is in news. And in fact, the Satnami sect is traced back to the medieval times during the Bhakti movement. So this Satnami sect is in news. Okay, so because recently it was in news due to their protest against the government in Chhattisgarh. So Chhattisgarh is capital of Haryana and Punjab, and recently the people who follow this Satnami sect or who practice this Satnami sect, they are making protests against the government in Chhattisgarh regarding the discretion of Jait Kham. Okay, so the discretion of Jait Kham, so that was a sacred religious site located in Baloda Bazar district. Okay, so Jait Kham was a sacred site of this Satnami sect. So that was destroyed. So because of that reason, they started protesting against the government for this discretion of this Jait Kham sacred place. Now, who are these Satnamis? Satnamis are predominantly the scheduled caste population, and they live mainly in Chhattisgarh and parts of Madhya Pradesh, right? So they actually live in parts of Chhattisgarh. Sorry, this is Chhattisgarh, not Chandigarh. Okay, so recently they have held this protest at Chhattisgarh, not Chandigarh. Okay, so Chhattisgarh, right? So they live mainly in Chhattisgarh and parts of Madhya Pradesh. These Satnamis are scheduled caste population. Okay, so apart from that, this Guru Ghasiya Das, so an 18th century saint revered as a spiritual leader of Chhattisgarh Satnamis. Okay, so when we talk about the Satnamis, especially the Chhattisgarh Satnamis, Guru Ghasiya Das is an 18th century revered saint who belong to this Satnami sect. And apart from that, the Satnamis find their roots in the teachings of Kabir. Now Kabir was also one of the Bhakti reformer, one of the Bhakti reformer, this Kabir, right? So therefore, Satnamis find their roots in the teachings of Kabir, a 15th century Bhakti poet. And in fact, Saint Kabir advocated worship of an immanent and formless absolute. So God is formless. And Kabir had also advocated the worship of formless absolute. However, in 1657, a mendicant named Birban, okay, so mendicant, in normal language, so mendicant is a beggar. So a mendicant named Birban, inspired by the teachings of Kabir, founded this Satnami sect, or founded this Satnami community. Right? So who founded this Satnami community? Birban founded this Satnami community, influenced or inspired by the teachings of Kabir. Okay. So he founded this Satnami community in present-day Haryana in 1657. So initially, most of the Satnamis belonged to, an untouchable caste, or they are, as of now, the scheduled caste people are associated with this Satnami sect, and they are also very often engaged in leather work, right? So when we talk about the features of this Satnami sect, so they rejected ritual and superstitions. So there will be no rituals followed by the Satnami sect, and there will be no superstitions also. And apart from that, the people of Satnami sect forbid caste distinctions, and they also forbid untouchability. Okay, so within their community there will be no caste distinctions among people, and apart from that, the Satnami sect also displays sympathy towards the poor and the weaker sections, and at the same time the skepticism towards authority and wealth. So these are some of the major features of the Satnami sect. So remember, this is very, very important, because you may get questions asking the features of the Satnami sect. So you may also get questions asking about this Satnami sect, where it was founded, when it was founded, everything. Okay, so when we talk about the history of protests within this Satnami sect, so we can trace their protests back to Aurangzeb's times. So because they revolted against Aurangzeb also. So during Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb, so Aurangzeb was Aurangzeb was the Mughal Emperor till 1707. Okay, so during Mughal era, so Satnamis rose against Aurangzeb's oppressive tax demands, and that has led to a significant rebellion against the Mughal Empire under the Emperor Aurangzeb, especially in regions Punjab and Haryana. So despite the Satnami sect or Satnami community faced a suppression by the Mughal army, they fought valiantly for their rights against the oppressive tax demands imposed by the Aurangzeb. So in fact, the Satnami community was revived under the leadership of Guru Ghasiya Das. So Guru Ghasiya Das was credited with the revival of the Satnami community in the mid of the 18th century, because the Guru Ghasiya Das emphasized on worship of one true God, and he also emphasized on rejecting the idol worship, and this is what the Bhakti movement was emphasized in the medieval times, 13th century, 14th century, right? So therefore, the Guru Ghasiya Das ideals were very closely have a resemblance with the Bhakti movement teachings. So in fact, his teachings allowed Satnamis to transcend social restrictions and at the same time embrace the path of spirituality. So these are some of the basic and all important details about the Satnami community. So the next important topic is the nitrous oxide emissions. So nitrous oxide is one of the most potential greenhouse gas and also a pollutant as well. And we'll understand the context of this particular thing. So recent report has been highlighting that there is actually a sharp increase in the nitrous oxide emissions from the agricultural activities. From the agricultural activities, the nitrous oxide emissions have been, there is actually a significant release of nitrous oxide emissions from agricultural activities. So nitrous oxide, a potent greenhouse gas, and it is being emitted at a very high rates due to the use of chemical fertilizers and animal waste in these croplands, and because of this reason the nitrous oxide is being emitted into the environment. So this is a potent greenhouse gas, so that significantly increases the temperatures of planet Earth, and that will result in global warming and climate change. Now if you look at the data, and if you carefully analyze the data of nitrous oxide emissions over a period of last few decades, between 1980 and 2020, the total nitrous oxide emissions have increased by at least 40%. So there was a 40% increase in the nitrous oxide emissions into the atmosphere. Now what is the primary cause of the emissions into the atmosphere? So intensified use of chemical fertilizers, pesticides and animal waste in agriculture are the primary causes of release of nitrous oxide into the atmosphere. However, there are a few countries who are known as the top emitters of this nitrous oxide. So this is the chemical formula of the nitrous oxide. Now what are those top emitters of nitrous oxide? So China, followed by India, US are among the top 10 emitters of nitrous oxide. So followed by China, India and US, there are also other top emitters, they including Brazil, Russia, Pakistan, Australia, Indonesia, Turkey and Canada. So these countries have also been contributing significantly towards the nitrous oxide emissions. So recently there is a rapid increase in the use of nitrogen fertilizers. The use of nitrogen chemical fertilizer will also significantly increases the nitrous oxide emissions. So the use of commercial nitrogen fertilizer has seen a dramatic rise from 60 million metric tons in the year 1980 to 107 million metric tons in the year 2020. And apart from that, animal manure has been contributing to 101 million tons in 2020, resulting in a combined usage of around 208 million metric tons of animal manure. Now animal manure, increased use of nitrogen fertilizers, so these things actually contribute to the nitrous oxide emissions into the atmosphere, since it is one of the major pollutant, and at the same time it is also a potent greenhouse gas. So there are concerns that this will contribute to growing climate change. So the next very important article is with respect to Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana. Now we all knew about the generic drugs, right? So generic drugs are are potent or effective like the branded drugs. For example, any pharmaceutical manufacturing company has invented any new drug, so it will be provided a patent for 20 years. Now after the expiry of this patent, now the pharmaceutical manufacturing companies can start manufacturing these branded drugs, and those branded drugs which are manufactured by other pharma companies after the expiry of this patent are known as generic drugs. Now generic drugs are available at a much lesser cost compared to their branded counterparts. For example, a branded drug A is available for around 2000 rupees, but on the other hand, the very same generic drug with the same efficiency and effectiveness B would be available for 150 or 100 rupees. So therefore it would be much more affordable for all the people, especially in a country where the out-of-pocket expenditures are very high, and at the same time the incomes of the people are also not too high. So recently Mauritius successfully adopted the first country to adopt the Jan Aushadhi scheme. Okay, so Mauritius was the first country to adopt this Jan Aushadhi scheme. Now in fact Nepal was also shown interest. Nepal has also approached India to establish this Jan Aushadhi Kendras in their country. So this particular move from India aims to provide the Nepalis from Nepal aims to provide Nepali citizens low cost and high quality generic medicines which are manufactured in India. So that is the objective of the Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana. Now when we talk about the details of this Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana, it is a flagship scheme of the Indian government, and this particular scheme aimed at making a quality generic drugs. So these generic drugs are affordable, available for all the consumers, especially the poor people. And in fact, the Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Kendras were also established across different government hospitals nearby these government hospitals, so that the people can easily access these generic drugs at a much lesser cost. So this was achieved through a dedicated outlets called Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Kendras. Now you can go to any of these Jan Aushadhi Kendra and you can access those drugs with a much lesser price, but same effectiveness, same potency as the branded drugs. Now if you look at the location or number of Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Kendras, there are around 10,000 Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Kendras across India. And in fact, these Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Kendras are serving as a vital hubs for dispensing affordable medicines to all the public. So what is the total, what is exact aim of the Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana? So they wanted to reduce the out-of-pocket expenditure for consumers, patients, by offering quality medicines and even surgical items at affordable prices for all the consumers. And in fact, by popularizing these generic medicines, this scheme actually seeks to address the financial burden which is being associated with the healthcare, because in India, the out-of-pocket expenditure, so the total expenditure of households on healthcare in their total income is much higher in India. So therefore, when we popularize these generic medicines which are less costly and much more affordable for everyone, so we can relieve them, or we can address the financial burden which is being associated with the healthcare, and we can also promote access to essential drugs for all segments of the society. So what will be the implementing agency of this Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana? So the scheme will be executed by, or scheme is executed by, the Pharmaceutical and Medical Devices Bureau of India. So this organization implements and executes Pharmaceuticals and Medical Devices Bureau of implements and executes Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana. So in fact, this agency is an autonomous society under the Department of Pharmaceuticals, right? So there's a Department of Pharmaceuticals. Under this Department of Pharmaceuticals, Pharmaceuticals and Medical Devices Bureau of India is an autonomous society. So through Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana Kendras, so extensive work will be done, and this scheme will also ensure availability of a wide range of generic medicines and catering to a diverse healthcare needs across India. So that is the objective of Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Kendras. Now apart from that, try to answer the question in the comment section, and thank you so much. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel and also hit the like button. Thank you.